Mr. Chair.
Been properly moved by Mayor Wembley and supported by Commissioner Daniels. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We're down to adoption of the minutes for March 28th, 2022. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes? The floor is open for a motion to adopt the minutes.
I make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Been properly moved by Commissioner Willis and supported by Commissioner Daniels. Is there any further discussion or any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We're down to public comment. This is the section where the public is allowed to speak to agenda items only. If there's anyone from the general public who wishes to speak to old business, which is smoking lounges ordinance draft, new business, planning commission redevelopment ready community subcommittee, or the planning commission meeting schedule adjustment, or item C, drive-throughs for marijuana-related businesses. This is an opportunity for you at this time to speak to those items. And if
Excuse me, I'm just wondering about that last one, drive-throughs.
drive-throughs for marijuana-related business.
Yeah, but that was discussed last week?
No, this is the,
New business?
yes, this is under new
Oh, okay.
business.
Well, then I guess I have to wait to see what you all say, because right now that seems to be something that would be a, excessive.
Okay, 1 second. Let the record show that Commissioner Tanya Williams is here. All right. Well, this is. You said this is something that is excessive.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, a drive-through for marijuana? Is that what we're talking about? I mean, you said you can speak on any one of those things you mentioned.
On any one of the items that are
Yeah,
on you.
and a drive-through. I mean, after all, we have space for 9 dispensaries because we did it by buffer instead of limiting the number. Anyone in the city can grow marijuana if they want to by state statute. So having a drive-through for marijuana facilities seems just another, it seems like gilding the lily, adding extra things we don't want. And like I said last week, we have to decide what our goal is. If we want to be a community that's welcoming and that is healthy for our children, and I mean, certain things have to be limited. So I guess that's all I have to say until I hear the discussion going on and whatever.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you, Commissioner Daniels.
I just wanted to speak to that. I'm pretty sure this is speaking of when we had the gentleman who wanted to do this, add that restaurant to this hookah bar. It was just gonna be the drive-through. I think that has to do with that,
Drive-throughs for marijuana-related businesses.
marijuana related. Because remember, he's going to hookah bar, right?
That's not marijuana.
Which isn't supposed to have.
Yeah, but I'm saying, it said hookah. So I know he said he wanted to do the drive-through.
Where says hookah at?
No, it doesn't. It
Oh.
doesn't say hookah there.
Right.
So I'm just saying that I was pretty sure it was speaking of the gentleman who wanted to add this restaurant to the hookah bar, right? Remember he wanted-
I need you to explain that in depth. Hookah and marijuana are two different
So-
items.
Remember the applicant
For the hookah lounge.
for the hookah lounge?
Right.
He came later, because he didn't have this at first. But later on, he said because of the appliances that it cost him more to take it out, so he wanted to keep it there, and he was just gonna have it for drive-through only.
No, I think he
I
said
thought it was
carry out.
carry out only.
Okay.
Because, I mean, just
Okay.
looking at that location, I don't even know how he would do a drive-through there.
Okay, okay, so I could be mistaken there, I thought it was drive-through.
Sure. You want me to speak to this?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so this is just an item to discuss preliminarily. The city or the state of Michigan changed the regulations on now allowing marijuana drive-through establishments. So the city can either choose to allow them as a special land use or not allow them. And we received an inquiry regarding if we allow them or not. So we just, after the state of Michigan updated their policy, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, the city of Inkster can follow suit to decide if we want to or not allow them. But right now, the zoning ordinance falls silent on if we do allow them or not. So we just want to make sure that we're upfront and transparent and have the conversation if we want to allow them or not.
So this
We
is
can
basically
start.
about driving through for actually marijuana, if you wanna drive through and pick up your marijuana. Okay, got it.
I know we had the one public comment, but, and there's somebody else from the public. Anybody else before? Okay. All righty. We don't have anything for public hearing. And we're down to old business. Smoking lounges ordinance draft. Discussion of the 2022 draft smoking lounges ordinance. No, we had brought this up, or I'm sorry, not brought up. It was on our agenda at the last meeting. I submitted things, items, if you will, and then throughout the week you all did as well. I saw those emails, and as well as there's, I believe, an attachment with our packet today. I guess we can go ahead and Mara, you can jump into it.
Okay, so this is just agenda item to discuss the changes that you submitted that are indicated in red in front of you. I just sent an email to you. I printed only 6 copies.
Yeah, because I just checked my email before I came. I didn't get that email.
Okay, so this is the conversation to talk about what other items you'd like to see revised in the smoking lounge ordinance, and then also to establish a date for a public hearing. Planning staff will then move to establish the public hearing, and again, we'll have time to revise. So when members of the public come in and address their public hearing, Planning Commission can think about what else to consider in the ordinance. So it's not like today is the last day for feedback. We still have a long period of feedback, because then it moves to City Council. So
Commissioner
now
Willis,
discuss
can you
any
pass that
other
down to Commissioner Williams?
revisions, and then also set public hearing date.
It is possible, Commissioner Williams, yours might have went to spam because I'm looking at it right now. It came at 5:29 p.m. on today. But I do see your name on here just to let you know it did come through that draft. But I just passed you the hard copy, that way you got it. All right, commissioners, go right ahead. Any further discussion on the smoking lounge ordinance in its draft form that it is before us? Commissioner Faison.
So I wasn't sure if we were supposed to do, if it mattered if we sent our comments to everyone or not, so I just sent mine to staff. But I do want to recap. Because I haven't been a part of a lot of code revisions, I had some general questions, just trying to understand whether, because it seemed to me that a lot of the things that were in it were giving an impression as if hookah or cigar bars in and of themselves are like illicit. So I was trying to understand whether this has rules in it that are unique to codes, or if it was just standard language. And there was stuff that gave the suggestion that like you can't have committed a crime in the past, or like it talks about all these other crimes that are listed that you already can't do in general. So I had some questions related to that.
Well, let's just go down the list. And just, since we're here publicly, and we just go page by page of the ones you have, and I guess what we'll do, before we turn the page, if anybody else has a question or concern about that particular page, or item, if you will, we just cover it at that time. Because I'm looking at mine, I see the stuff that's red, but I'm not sure, what page you starting on.
And I probably had, if I had to guess, 6 to 8 dot points. So it might take a while for me to walk through my whole list. I feel like I don't want to monopolize the conversation. And I figured I would just kind of give a summary.
I don't think you're monopolizing it, but do as you deem necessary.
Okay. Might take me a second to find that.
I think so. There we go.
I found it. Is it okay if I jump back in?
Absolutely.
So it talks about criminal acts, and I was just curious why they're outlined when they're illegal already. So I was just curious if they're like uniquely applied and for these particular businesses.
Is this the one that's on page 1, says specified criminal act shall mean any, like the definition, or?
On this version, it's on the 3rd page, but it's really just a general question. Because part of this is a learning process for me. I haven't done a whole lot of these, so I'm just trying to understand if this particular code has, if there is a reason why so many things that are already illegal are specifically listed in here, and whether there's something unique about this particular set of codes.
Well, what we could do is I'll ask Samara if you are able to catch on or up to speed to speak to that.
Should I go through all of them and get them out of the way, or?
Well, we could. I would say yes, but I just want to make sure you're able to grasp it all and speak to it.
Thanks, Chair. So Vice Chair Faison, are you saying you're wondering why we listed off all these specified criminal acts and just making sure it's not redundant, because it might be in another ordinance within the city?
Not just another ordinance, but they're already illegal. So, I'm just curious why, is that the way we write codes? Like, we just reiterate all the other laws that are applicable in a particular, it does seem redundant, but I'm just trying to understand if there is a special reason for this particular use that we outlined all of these criminal acts that are already illegal, or,
Through the chair, if I can, I believe, Kim, that in here somewhere it says that if you're a person who has an influential interest in this business, you cannot fall under these, have, committed any of these specified criminal acts. I believe that that's what the criminal act part is about.
so
Or
does,
any other job, like-
so does that mean if?
I don't know if it's at any other job. I just think it speaks to this whole influential interest, which means that you have some part of the business. And if you have some part of ownership of the business, and at the moment, I don't remember what it says right here. Ownership of financial interest of 10% or more of a business. That's what these criminal acts are speaking to. This 10% owner or more of the business. That's why
Well,
they're talking about it.
That kind of leads me to another question, because another thing that I'm trying to understand is whether we're applying that because the state requires us to, or are we adding something additional? Because I feel like if we tried to prevent people from opening businesses who have committed crimes in the past, there's a whole lot of businesses that wouldn't operate anymore. So I'm just curious whether there is something unique about this that's being applied to. Like, what's the reason?
I'm gonna say, through the chair, I'm gonna go tomorrow on that one. I'm just saying from reading that I know I'm guessing why they included it, but whether or not that's normal I think we
Yeah,
asked
that's
planning
that's
commission.
part of my question
but I
too.
don't know
Is
the answer to that.
it's more of a learning process.
Before Mara addresses it, is it a full sentence or paragraph you can refer to in that question?
Well, it's more like like a more than a page. So between the printed page that we have that starts with influential interest, but then, it kind of speaks to all of these things that are applicable to a person who has an influential interest. And then further, it just talks about all of these legal codes, like essentially you can't commit these crimes. But I don't know if that means you couldn't have committed a crime in the past. Like, I need to better understand.
So for instance,
the
like,
purpose.
I'm just asking for an example, like where it says specified criminal act shall mean, and this is a definition of it. And it says any of the following misdemeanor or felony offenses under any of the following statutes as amended for which less than 7 years elapsed since the date of conviction or the date of release from confinement for the conviction. Is that something you're speaking about, or is it a different area?
That's the same page, but like above that, there's influential interest. So I think all of this is applicable to an owner or a partial owner.
Okay, and so with the influential interest, now, mind you, it's saying definitions, that's the section. And it's saying influential interest shall mean any of the following. So the reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to understand exactly what you're speaking to, because influential interest is just talking about someone who's going to have an influential interest in the business. This isn't talking about conviction right now. So that's why I was just trying to get clarity on that, because I didn't want to mix the two up. These are just definitions. So I'm asking, in the ordinance, which section are you solely speaking to where it's prohibiting someone who might have a criminal history, so we can actually isolate that?
Is it not in here because there is the recommendation that people who fit this description could have limited abilities with businesses?
Through the
I mean,
chair-
is that the
through
reason why
chair,
it's in here?
If you go to section 125.08, this is where it's all comes together, grounds for denial. And then if you look at,
Okay, so we're looking at grounds for denial then.
all right, grounds for denial number 11. And then, so
So
the
what's
grounds
the
for-
number again for that? I'm sorry.
Number 11, 125.08. Number,
125.08.
yeah,
All right, I'm scrolling down to it now.
and then number 11. And then you will see that grounds for denial is if an applicant has been convicted of or pled guilty, blah, 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 for a specified criminal act as defined in this article. So that's where it comes together.
So, okay, so that's different than, that specified criminal act. An applicant has been convicted or pled guilty or nolo contendere or no contest or entered an Alford plea to a specified criminal act as defined in this article.
They can be denied.
Can be, right?
Can be. Does it talk to the level of the conviction though? Because that just means you might have pled no contest to driving 50 in a 40.
Well, no. Then you have to go back to the definitions, all right? So the definitions that Kim pointed out
Is the
is
definition,
what you can be denied for.
Right. So the definitions portion, okay, what definitions? I'm trying to just get the exact one we're looking at. So under definitions, what item number?
So on page 3, where it says specified criminal act shall mean any of the following. Everything under that, up until the next page,
Page 3.
is what a person, if they've been convicted or, like they said, convicted or whatever the rest of that other page said, of any of these offenses,
Right.
then you have grounds for denial.
so I think, if I'm understanding, I think what Kim is trying to determine, what's the reasoning in defining these specific acts that could cause someone to not qualify?
Well, why would these be reasons that people couldn't, like, so if they have already been through the justice system, why is this even relevant? I'm just trying to understand, like, do we do this across the board when we do codes? Is this-
Or is it a
or is
standard that's
this-
done across the municipal board? I think that's the question.
Yeah, or is it being done because there is an assumption that if you're, selling hookah or cigars, that you have some, they're not, in and of themselves, they're not illicit, so I'm trying to understand why.
I got you. You're specifically talking about these penal codes that are right here. You're not talking about the influential interest. That's just a definition. I got you. We're talking about specified criminal acts.
Well, criminal acts and your ability to operate, like the way that it affects your ability to operate a business.
Gotcha. Okay. Mara, you can go ahead and address it. I just wanted some more clarity to make sure I was on the same page.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a direct answer for you right now, but it's a good question. It's something that we can look into and find the answer for as we move forward with other amendments. I'm happy that we reached clarity on what we're asking. So let me just reiterate. We're looking to see if the definitions section is something standard. Well, if it's standard to define specified criminal acts within a specific smoking lounge ordinance, and then understanding why we might deny, like have any grounds for denial for anyone with a background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just understanding why, and if it's just arbitrary or if
Right.
there's reasoning from the state.
That is my concern, that it is arbitrary, because then if it is, then I feel like that could open us up to other problems.
I think, a lot of times, like certain people that have specific felonies, like, when it comes to somebody want to be a CNA or something like that, there's certain things that they cannot have on their record. So I think it depends on the type of job that we're talking about. In this case, we're talking about marijuana, right?
Mm-mm. This is not marijuana.
Hookah. Okay, so in this case, we're talking about the hookah bar, right?
Or
So there are
tobacco, yeah.
specific jobs that say, if you are like a person who did mortgages, if you ever was caught doing something, they'll have it in. If you ever did this, and this, because it is related to that job, they'll put those specific things in it that you can't, that's a possibility that you won't be able to.
Yeah, and I
I
presume
think
that,
that's what this is saying, like, certain things that you can't be in if you've been convicted of it, or,
well,
right?
presumably you have to have a state license to handle these materials, and so I would assume that the state licensing process would take care of that. So I don't see why we would need to go above and beyond that.
And say it again. You're saying, why do we need to say it again if it's already in the state?
Right, if
Because
the
that
state,
part should already
if
be
the
done
state
anyway.
takes
Why do we
care
have
of that, yeah. And I wouldn't want to be applying things like this to this one thing, and if it's not consistent with everything else, then, yeah.
I see what you're saying, because, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
No, I'm waiting, I'm listening.
Okay, so I think that, I think I understand what you're saying though, because if it's already done, why are we, that goes back to what I was talking about with the locker. If that's something that is already done, why are we repeating it? Why are we saying it again when we know that it's already done at this level? Like when we talk about the opening of marijuana and stuff, like we already know the state is gonna handle a lot of the stuff that we don't have to be bothered with. So why are we repeating it again when it should be already taken care of?
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's open it up, because if somebody look at this, because this is public record, right? They may, like you said, feel like, oh, I can't do this, or and we're opening up ourselves to some type of
Liability.
Yes, liability.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Mayor.
just a question. Where did the draft come from?
So this is an accumulation of different cities. I don't have what methods Jamie used to write the zoning or this smoking lounge draft, but he did look into best practices. I know he referenced the city of Ann Arbor and their smoking lounge ordinance. So this is accumulation of and City of Ann Arbor's smoking lounge ordinance, and then also feedback from the commission staff. I'm not sure if another city was considered, but we can get the methodology too. To be honest, this is Jamie's item, but I'm doing my best here, and I'll make sure that I'll follow up with all your questions.
Right. And that's fine, we got time, and I know, Mr. Mayor, I had got a copy of City of Dearborn Heights and had submitted, and when Jamie was working on it, I was just sending it out as a reference. Because I didn't know he had something on file already. He had told me he had one. He asked, is this the one that the planning commission wants to use? I said, oh no, by all means, whatever direction you're going in, going that direction. I was just submitting this as a point of reference if needed. I didn't see too much in the City of Dearborn Heights ordinance like this, but I know when we talk to our attorneys about cap and stuff, they're always telling us to be careful with that. But in Dearborn Heights ordinance, they have a hard cap on,
Oh, how
hookah
many you
lounges.
can have?
Yeah, I think it says either 2 or 3. It's literally in there. I think it's about
okay.
maybe 11 or 14 pages. I had just, just read it in full and said, okay, this is how they did. Because I think we often get confused, and I might be going a little off script, when we cross into Dearborn Heights and then Dearborn, what Dearborn Heights actually is versus Dearborn. Because like, wait a minute, they got a whole bunch, but Dearborn has a bunch. Dearborn Heights only has like 2 or 3.
Gotcha.
So, I don't know, because I never confirmed with him which one he was using. But I didn't see anything in what Commissioner Faison is referencing to in the Dearborn Heights ordinance. But I get what you're asking about now. Is it something we do in all ordinances across the board?
Right.
Or what, especially if the state, I know, and I don't know if you know or not, from my understanding, I was told it's very hard to get a smoking lounge license through the state, specifically for hookah.
Yeah, for sure.
Any further questions or comments, Mr. Mayor?
No, I just wanted to know, again, I mean, if it was something, I think both commissioners made valid points as it relates to just not trying to do above what the state would recommend and make sure that we're lining up with the state recommendations.
Yeah. And I know that's normally the practice is to align ourselves with the state unless there is something dire that the city has to put more teeth into it.
Right.
Okay, commissioners, anything further on this particular point? Hearing none, Commissioner Faison, please continue.
Thank you, sir. There was since the pages are a little bit different, I couldn't tell you exactly what page it was on, but there was a reference to liability insurance. And that's another area where I'm curious, do we apply that same requirement across the board? I mean, I'm presuming that somewhere else in our city codes, we require liability insurance. So I was curious why it shows up here. But if that's just something that we do across the board, I totally understand.
For everybody who has a hard copy in front of them or electronic copy, it is on page 7 of 16. It's at the bottom. It's number 10, liability insurance. And it starts off with evidence of current general commercial liability insurance in the amount of $250,000 and workers' compensation and statutory amounts. Insurance shall be maintained for the duration of the license period, and the licensee shall submit proof of insurance within 24 hours of any renewal. Licensee shall notify the city clerk within 24 hours of the cancellation of insurance. Now, my opinion, and the mayor or whomever can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the reason this is in there is really to cover the city at all levels, because even with special events packages, they have to show proof and have the city on there as a rider. Just like when people want to use city property. Regardless of, it's just an open field across the street. Yeah, but if something happens, whoever gets injured or hurt, they're gonna sue the city.
Right. Now, I'm all for insurance. I'm just curious if we do this in every use code or if this was just placed in here. So I guess it's again more of a learning curve for me trying to understand, do we pick up all of these other requirements that happen with our business licensing process elsewhere?
I know they do it in the marijuana code, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, please.
I know they do it in the marijuana code
Okay,
as it relates to insurance.
okay. That's helpful.
Any other input? All right, hearing none, continue, please.
The other one, it looks like it might have been updated, and it was more of a comment, because it prohibited outdoor activities. And, you know, I hope that we evolve as a city to have outdoor dining. I realize that a lot of cities have a specific set of codes that applies to outdoor dining, which also could get into like outdoor, like use of like whatever they're gonna have on site.
It is section 125.23. That is page 14 of 16.
You are on it.
12523.
125.23. Yep. Outdoor activities. It did say prohibited. Now prohibited is crossed out.
So, this is another one where I don't know if we have provisions for like outdoor dining or outdoor use as an extension of businesses that have some level of, I don't know, food and or smoking. But I'm just curious if we make up for that somewhere else.
Mark?
But
Well, can you restate the question?
so when I sent my notes to you, one of the comments was, you know, I hope that as a city, we evolve to having outdoor dining, which could eventually include, you know, the kinds of lounges that this set of codes would apply to. But I don't know if the city is gonna have like a citywide approach to something like that. And therefore, this may or may not be applicable, but it looks like it was stricken, but I don't think it should be stricken, you know, we can talk about it, if the body feels like it should stay, just feels like something that we could talk about, like our vision for being able to have outdoor dining spaces that might extend to whichever businesses are gonna fall under this, whether it's cigars or hookah or whatever other businesses apply. I'm assuming that they're gonna have something more than just smoking. I hope they will have food. So if that's the case, I would like for us as a city to evolve to have outdoor activities. But I don't know I don't know what our stance is on that.
I think this speaks just solely to the smoking lounge stuff, because there's a lot of stuff we don't have on the books yet, and we're going case by case. And I think this one just speaks to the smoking lounge stuff because it was prohibited. Then the collective must have said, hey, we want to see this because what if this, what if that? And so now it's in here. What you're talking about, the outdoor dining, I think that's just going to be something that comes up before us in the future, just to address it and make sure we regulate it, just so everybody not just going haywire. There's some rules and regulations.
Right.
Because this looks right here, and it's probably going to mimic it. It just says a licensee may petition the city council for permission to allow. That way, like I was letting a resident know before, he was telling me something about their vacant, dilapidated property and why they got to get it inspected and this and that and the other. And I said that, well, that's how you bring the city up and have everybody on the same board. Same playing field, versus not addressing it at all and everybody just willy-nilly doing whatever they want to do. But I think this one speaks specifically right now to the smoking lounge ordinance, and maybe that's something we could put on our to-do list in regards to outdoor dining for any establishment in the city of Inkster.
Thank you.
No problem.
So I'm clear. When it said a licensee may petition the city council for permission to allow, so they're not saying every time they want to do it, they're just saying if they have permission to do whatever they want to do or not. Like this coming Friday, we're having outside smoking.
Right, once they
They don't have to
petition.
come every time.
Nope.
It's just, we just know that this particular hookah bar has already gotten that permission to have outside
Exactly.
smoking. Okay.
And that's
So they don't
similar.
have to come to the city every time they gonna have something outside.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's similar to the extended hours that the state talked about with alcohol establishments, but they granted the city those options to give those extended licenses because say if everything was good till 2 a.m., but every time after 2 a.m.
Right.
it's going down, the city has that right to say, hey, we taking that license back, and if you do it, we shut you down. So that's what that appears like to me, that we had that right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Right ahead.
It would be my hope that through the planning process with the applicant and the planning department, that they would submit that on their plans, that it will come before us, the planning, commission as well. I'm sorry. Come before the planning commission as well, and then, of course, to the city council. So doing this in process, so if they've already been in existence, then I understand them coming back and asking for permission, but we should know that before we even grant them the first license.
Right.
As it relates to a special land use.
To get it all out the way.
Right.
So should we do some research then about like what's already on the books with regard to outdoor patios, or do we already have something?
I don't think we necessarily do, because nobody, this is new to us with this
Okay,
part.
okay,
And I think it's a safeguard just because of where that establishment is behind houses. And we don't know what the residents are gonna say just yet. And at least this is here, because if they come in here, like they did for all the marijuana stuff, flooding the planning
Without all
commission
the-
meetings,
yeah.
at least we got something to back
right,
us
right.
as the commission, and not had the business owners mad at us because we respected the wishes of the community.
Yeah,
And I think too, Mr. Chair, that as it relates to just the COVID pandemic, the state did do like an emergency outdoor
Right.
extension for those particular establishments that they could, eat outside.
And then it
But
kinda
they
became
still
a
had
way
to
of
come
life.
to the city and ask for permission, but of course, we didn't have any.
Yeah. Then it became a kind of a way of life. People
Right.
like it. I mean, especially being trapped inside so much, you just want to be outside.
Right, for sure.
so our to-do list, just got a little bit longer. For like,
It's ever growing.
all right. I yield the floor.
You sure?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Anybody else?
For the chair, I had a couple things, please. So we are allowing people to smoke marijuana in these smoking lounges? Is that what we're doing?
Where are you looking at that?
It's on page 3 in red.
Page 3.
Because I thought we were just changing the definition to, I thought we were changing the definition to say that they couldn't smoke marijuana in the smoking lounges.
Is this the one that says starts off with non-tobacco smoking products?
Yes.
Alrighty, so non-tobacco smoking products or substances shall include any product or substance that can be consumed by smoking, such as, but is not limited to, e-cigarettes, Vitus or Vitus, critics, clove cigarettes, herbal cigarettes, electronic and herbal hookah, steam stones, smoking gels, marijuana and its byproducts, or other smoke product.
Oh.
Mr. Chair, if I can.
Go right ahead, Mr. Mayor.
So basically what this is doing, Commissioner Kane, is covering all aspects of smoking in any form that it is. So we're not saying that you're allowed to smoke marijuana. We're saying that it should be governed by this ordinance. So the council would still, we've opted out of smoke marijuana lounges, period, from the state of Michigan. So we're not even talking about that at all. But at the same time, you want to cover it just so, when it comes to if we ever had to shut an establishment down, it's right there in writing saying what it is and what you can't have and what's governed by this ordinance.
Okay, just through the chair though, I guess where my confusion comes though is that if you go down and it says the smoking lounge, it says, shall mean an establishment which has a state exemption and that allows smoking of tobacco products or non-tobacco products, which is that definition up there.
I see what you're talking about in the.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
to me, it looks like we're allowing smoking lounges for people to smoke marijuana because it's linking these two.
Yeah, you probably can get just a little bit more clear on that.
Right, I was gonna say, maybe it's just, right, it might just need some clarification in the language.
I would just ask, how do you, at this time, recommend we separate? Because I see exactly what you're talking about. Even though we've opted out in one capacity, here it's like you said, lumping it in. So how do we defer between the two?
I'm gonna defer to the planning department on that because I think this is a 16-page policy, so I'm gonna say I'm sure there's a way for it to be done. And I didn't look at, I just wanted to ask the question today. I'll look at it later and see if I can, come up with something. But obviously I think it needs to, if we're just defining something, what do we mean by non-tobacco smoking products, then that might be a little bit different or set aside because we do reference that definition where we say it's allowed. So that's kind of problematic.
Well, here's an idea, and you all let me know what you're thinking. We could put verbiage in here, smoking lounge shall mean, or the smoking lounge definition by the state of Michigan shall mean what's here, and then say the city of Inkster reserves the right not to allow X, Y, and Z. Would that work? Is that legal?
Right, that's, yeah. I mean, that
I
sounds
think
good, but
that
I think
works
that's.
because, again, the state is giving you an option to opt in or out. So it's already been determined that it's legal because
Right.
we've done it already.
Right.
So
but
just
then the
spelling
city
that
has-
out like that, I think Chair is brilliant. So I think that it makes total sense. That way you have clarification both ways. So if a person says, hey, look, it says right here, but look right up underneath it. It's not fine print, it's all in the same print. It says the city has the right to reserve.
And I think that's where it's tailoring to the community. When you state it that way.
Correct.
I have a question about this, though.
Go right ahead.
Is it suggesting, like, it actually seems problematic for us to have marijuana listed here, because doesn't the inclusion give the presumption that it's gonna be permitted?
Well, who does, I think, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, and I'm
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry. But I think, Kim, that's what we're doing right now, because like right now you have nothing on the books. So a person could, essentially do it, right? In the future, a council may come along and say, or a planning commission may come along and say, hey, we want marijuana establishments to be able to smoke, or whatever. So how do you govern them? So this is a smoking lounge ordinance. If we can deal with it now, and then if we need to tweak it in the future, then I think that, we should, versus not just dealing with it at all and leaving it out. We need to define those. If we spell it out and say that it's not permitted, then we need to put that into the language
Oh,
versus
so
not
we-
dealing with it.
So there was a recommendation to specifically say on-site consumption of marijuana is not permitted.
Exactly.
Okay,
Unless explicitly granted by the city of Inkster or the council,
Chair, can I get some? Okay,
Or
great.
Ms. Mary, we done?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
We're just talking.
I think yours are raising great points, and I'm wondering, since, if we can simplify this even more and just keep non-tobacco smoking products and substances to be just non-tobacco and non-marijuana, but add in a definition for marijuana substances. So that we don't convolute whatever smoking lounge is associated with, which is tobacco products and non-tobacco products. And then we can then call out, right, and marijuana products if we do wish to have ordinance that allows for marijuana smoking.
How does that sound to you guys?
Yeah.
To the chair, yeah,
That
I like
definitely-
that, to
definitely
take it out.
simplifies it.
Yeah, just to take it out of this.
Straight cut.
Yeah, take it out of this.
There's
Take it out of this
collusion.
conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's spelled right out.
Okay. Cool. All right, so just, because I know we need to give you time to take note and document that, Mara, so just let me know you're ready to continue on.
So when we're adding the marijuana definition, what would you, does anyone want to say about it? You want to-
We probably have a definition already, don't we?
You're right,
Somebody
you
has
probably do with their marijuana ordinance on the word.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm good.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Kane, you were,
Yeah, I just had one more question, please.
go ahead.
So through the chair, are we, it kind of got brought up a little bit earlier, are we going to set some buffers? I know because you were just talking about this whole limits on the hookah lounges, right? Are we setting any type of, I know we said we don't want to do the number limits. Are we setting any kind of buffers or anything like that for these? I don't think I saw that in here. And maybe I just missed it.
I don't think
But
I
are we
saw
doing
anything about
anything
natural
like that?
buffers or anything either.
No, it's in
They
here.
added a
Is it
location.
in
Is
there?
it?
Okay, let's,
It's in there. They talk about, they actually said 1,200 feet.
Yeah, yeah, I do
That's all.
remember reading
I saw
that.
that earlier.
This might be an
You
oversight.
know where that's at?
I
Yeah.
think I do remember reading that.
Let me see.
And then they talk about the property line to the,
It's in section 125.05 location,
Say it again, 125 what?
.05 location.
Got it.
That's gonna be changed, just.
Page 5. Yep. The establishment of a smoky lounge is prohibited if it constitutes the second such use within 1,200 feet.
now my only thing with that, Mr. Chair, is that, okay, what if you have, you got the TCD, and you got a hookah lounge, and then, cigar bar right next to it.
Yep.
So you saying one or the other, we're gonna have to choose one or the other? Cause 1,200 feet is like a half a mile. And our TCD, you know, where we would really wanna concentrate this type of stuff for entertainment and, you know, social stuff, you know, you would basically, you know, just put yourself out, especially when you're talking about, you know, businesses within the TCD that people are going to patronize.
Yeah, I got you there with the TCD, and it's kind of like when we were talking about the micro businesses of co-locating them because we zoned them specifically to that particular district. I guess the question would be, right now, zoning. What's the zoning permits for
In
smoking?
terms of
Right.
maps?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going somewhere else with that. Sorry.
What was the question, Mr. Chair?
Where is the smoking lounges, I guess, permitted?
Like, which zoning districts?
Yeah, like TCD, we know for sure.
I don't think they outlined it.
Yeah, I don't
No,
remember
no,
seeing that either.
But I thought it was just, you know, the general business district. I mean, and it should be outlined. That was one of the things that I wanted to point out.
Yeah.
That we should outline where we're going to allow these. So if it's the B3, B1, you know what I mean, B1, N1, whatever it is, we should outline that.
Yeah.
But it was just, my concern was that, you know, if I'm a hookah person, then now, you know, you got the smoking, you know, ordinance in play, then I couldn't necessarily have a cigar bar next to a hookah spot. That don't make sense to me. I can see if you saying, okay, no, hookah lounges are defined, then you got one hookah lounge, and then the next one shouldn't be 1,200 feet, and then you got one cigar bar, the next one 1,200 feet. But those two together should be allowed to exist.
Right next to, you saying they should not be allowed to?
They should be allowed to exist.
To- right
within-
together.
Next door to each other.
Within to each other. I mean, you go right down here to Dearborn, next to Bar Louie, you got a cigar bar and you got a hookah spot. And
Right next door, yeah.
like, you know, and people are moving around, shaking. People are actually sitting outside smoking cigars and smoking hookahs. Like, you know, we want to create that atmosphere, but at the same time, control it.
And I know the only thing they did there was, remember, they used to have a pass-through, and the city made them seal that off.
Right. Yeah.
And it had to be two separate establishments, even though they're right next door to each
There
other.
you go.
I didn't know that.
Exactly.
Because, just so you all know, and I'm not sure what you frequent, but the cigar bar that the mayor was alluding to also sells alcohol. But the hookah bar is actually not permitted to sell alcohol.
Oh,
But the way they got it set up, they can bring it
They
over
can actually
there.
go over there and get their liquor,
They
right?
come next
Come
door.
back, okay.
But they just can't sell
They
it there.
just
That's
can't
the
sell it.
loophole.
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Food the same way.
Yeah.
I think
I
that's a
was going to
state,
say, I mean, it's a lot of things
state
like that.
requirement.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. They don't allow food either. You can carry your food into the front door, but you can't.
I think that takes the liability off the business and puts it on the consumer. Say, you did this. They didn't entice you to do it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Go ahead,
guess,
Mark. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna make a follow-up comment to the limitations and location. I feel like in places where we want to, I mean, I guess similar to what the mayor said, like in places where we want to see, you know, a lot more activity and like, you know, social engagement, the limitations there make less sense than they do in other places. And another thing in terms of location that we're gonna run into is, right now, this is putting a limitation on proximity to childcare facilities, and we know that that place that came before us on Inkster Road is like right next door to a childcare facility. So it's just something else that we're gonna have to deal with, because they technically applied before we had this, and now we're going to adopt it before they actually get approved.
Well, I think that's the one thing we spoke about before, in that case, they're grandfathered in, if you will. But it's one of those things like, okay, I don't wanna say weren't ready, but we didn't have anything, so we never did this. But once it came before us, it's like, okay, we do need to put something on the
For
books
sure.
so that in the future, we're protected. But I get what you're saying about that, because they will come over. I think though, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know what their hours of operation are.
What was that, childcare?
Yeah, they,
Both of them, childcare and the,
come on.
yeah.
I mean, I know the childcare, they're over there like 6 a.m. in the morning, and they go to like 6 in the evening,
Okay.
you know? I think I just read that we were allowing the hookahs to be, the closing hours would be 2 a.m. to 8 a.m.
I got you. Yeah, so other than
We
that,
would allow them to be open,
okay.
whatever span that is.
Well, I think because they already started the process and wasn't everything,
Well, they filed, but there's a lot that hasn't been done.
right. So, I'm not to stray away. I know Mara wanted to speak to something,
sorry.
and I don't want to lose everybody's train of
I'm
thought.
sorry.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. So I know that when staff performed their site plan special land use application review for the gentleman who wanted to open up his hookah lounge, we used the use bar or lounge because the zoning ordinance does not have a specific hookah lounge use. So staff saw that was the one that was most similar. And bar and lounge are special land uses only, so not by right, but special land uses only within the B2, B3, and TCD districts. And I do want to know that it might make sense for staff to also consider expanding upon the list of permitted uses. Maybe not for the hookah conversation, but just like bar and lounge. Because a special land use process is more of an extensive review process than just allowing by right someone to come in and apply. So these kinds of things, by allowing more by right uses, allow for a more efficient review process and makes business friendlier within the city of Inkster. So I'm kind of talking about two different things here. So one, we do have to look into all of our uses and see where we want to allow more permitted uses or keep special land uses. Right now, hookah is not defined, but staff is considering it bar and lounge. So it's and these uses are special land uses within the B2, B3, and TCD districts. And then put a third ring on this. It's getting kind of hairy out there for all of the people that are opening up their marijuana businesses because of this buffer. So it's like 1,000-foot buffer from another business, like another marijuana business. So one marijuana business cannot open up within 1,000 feet from another marijuana business. But really, it's just then a race of whoever gets through the planning and zoning process. And I'm getting kind of worried. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but I know that people are going through their site plan reviews, and if their site plans are allowed by the zoning ordinance, then we can't deny them. And I'm worried that we might face some legal challenges. So I do know on that third ring over here that I was talking about, when we do require buffers, that staff is looking into writing the marijuana ordinance or amending the marijuana ordinance to address that concern. But this is just to come into the conversation of what we need to think about when we are requiring buffers and not requiring buffers, and how that might be just some negative externality or unseen hardship on businesses as they race to the finish line.
I never thought about it that way.
So 3 points, a lot of food, for thought.
No, that's a good point, though, that you bring up. I'm sorry, through the chair. That's a great point that you bring up, just because, again, if you have two applications at the same time, how do you make sure, from an administrative point, that they're all getting the attention and going through the process, at the same time? Because a person could get a certificate of occupancy before this other person gets a certificate of occupancy based off an appointment that they made with the building department to get an inspection. So if they get their CFO before this other person get their CFO an hour before, then they're granted that license and it knocks the other person out.
So you're saying, I wanna get a marijuana, facility, and you wanna get a marijuana facility. And our facility is right next door to each other. You actually got your appointment first, I got it second, but I beat you because I got all my stuff done first? Is that what you're saying?
That's it. That's what's happening.
That's exactly what he's saying.
That's
And because we are this close together, one of us ain't gonna get it.
Exactly.
And then you can go to say, as an applicant, the city showed favor, or the city didn't call me back, or the city didn't do this, or the administration didn't do that. or they
That's the
didn't like
word
me.
that
But I thought we had something already in the book saying that they couldn't do that anyway, like, or do we? Am I getting confused?
Well, this is a whole nother subject, and Mara, thank you for bringing it up, but we definitely need to talk about it, I guess, as, at another time, but just briefly, it talks about it in the ordinance, that, your application, the process of the application, going through the city clerk's office, of course, she checks all the boxes, make sure you have your attestation from the state of Michigan, and then, of course, you go through the planning process. And then it says, okay, you have so much time to go through the planning process. However, Mara brings up a good point, because then what if your planning commission date to come before the planning commission, we send you back for whatever reason. Or you get through the planning process, get the council, and the council sets you back for whatever reason. But we're right next door to each other with the buffers. It's human error that comes in play.
But I'm thinking with regard to, I thought we already had something. We are talking about we're talking about marijuana specifically.
We're talking about marijuana, but I think she brings this point up because we're looking at doing it right now.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think I know what she's trying to say is that the play that she's thinking about as far as the footage, like how
Exactly,
the
it's not gonna
distance
happen
between each
anyway,
other.
right? Like,
Yeah,
it couldn't
but
happen anyway,
but
right?
what they're saying is that, for instance, like we say, I think what is it? They can't be within 1,000 feet. But
Right.
the problem is that
Okay.
you say that you got 6 square miles. So I mean, whatever the area where marijuana can be.
Right.
So every building there has an opportunity to do it. So everyone want to jump on the bandwagon. So what the mayor is saying is that if everyone trying to grab it, and the building department grabs yours before mine, but yet at the same time, I didn't get all my paperwork done. It just mishap that the building department pushed me back 2 weeks, and now you got yours. So now, guess what? We within 1,000 feet. So I'm hit.
Oh,
When it should be actually, and I think that this will solve it all, that when an application comes in, you look at if it's any other establishments around it.
Yeah.
Proposed establishment.
There you go, proposed establishment.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
then you say to the proposed establishment that I had an application, as the clerk, I'm saying, I already have an
Have an
application
applicant.
for that area, you're 1,000 feet within it. They have 6 months to complete.
Correct.
Or
Now that-
6
yeah,
months to go through the
yeah,
process.
yeah.
And if they don't, if
Then
within
you're
the
the
6
next
month
in line.
timeline, you're the next one.
the next one,
Yeah.
yep,
That's how that should probably go.
Yeah.
that makes
I
sense,
agree.
because otherwise you are gonna run into
Yeah,
That
what you're
issue,
talking.
Yeah.
no question.
and we may want to do the same thing with this. If that's the case, if that's what staff is saying, or, of course, this body is saying that we need that, but I'm like with Kim, it's not illicit, like,
It's a
you're
what?
talking about
It's
hookah
not
and
illicit.
cigars.
Yeah.
What are we talking, what are we?
Yeah, I mean, but still,
It ain't no
it
narcotic
still
to
comes
it.
to what she's talking about. Even though it's not, I think she's talking about the fact that they're coming to her and it's like this race of
It's a
people.
potential issue is what she stated.
Right.
What's
even
happening with
though
her
it's-
right now, though?
Yeah.
That's the marijuana, it's just happening with her right now.
That's why she's bringing it up.
Yeah, because
Right.
we're considering doing it with this. So we need to
Right.
put something in it to give us some guidance on that. And I think having that in there saying that, under the clerk in the process, then, it's the clerk's responsibility that when she takes the application in, that she gets with planning, verify whatever, that if it's somebody else in the process, I'm sorry, I can't take your application at this
At this time.
but you'll be in to catch it. You're on a time stamp about 6 months from now. We'll call you if this person hasn't completed the
Or
process.
they come to you before then and say they're not able to.
Yeah, there you go, that part. And then for us to make it happen.
From a process standpoint, the only way that you can eliminate like the human error is like Jamie talked about using BSNA as a way to track all the zoning cases. That's probably the only way you
Oh,
can
no doubt.
eliminate human error is to have an electronic system.
Everything goes into the system, and it comes in every time, every encounter.
And that's time stamped and dated and everything.
And through the chair, I would just like to say that, the mayor's suggestion, I think, is a good one, and I think that's something that you probably want to put in place sooner rather than later, because that's where you stop the liability. There's always going to be human error. Guess what? Probably even in the BSNA,
Even
right?
with the BSNA.
Because you have to have a human being to go back and look at that
That's
data
right, true.
that comes out. They're going to have to do something. So the process at the front end is with exactly what you're talking about right there, Mayor, is where you stop it. You let them know you cannot apply, these people still have 6 months. And then it's no problem. That's where it's at right there,
And there's
so.
no favoritism there.
Exactly.
Right, you don't even let them go. Because that's where the liability comes, is when we accept the application and we tell people, yes, you have a chance. If you tell them from up front that they don't have a chance because somebody else is already in the queue, that's how you stop it, because they can't say we wasted a year or two
And it's
doing
transparent.
something.
Exactly.
It's transparency, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I think the first step is we had an opportunity to do that with this ordinance, and then, of course, with Mars coming back and bringing that before us with the marijuana ordinance, I think it'd be pertinent for us to look at that as well. But she's already dealing with that, but I never thought about it that way.
Right.
All right, I know I had heard Mara reach out before the conversation engaged. I do want to recognize her.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, again, other great conversation. Pleasure to be here. Thanks, everyone. But would you guys think that a cap would work too?
And let me say this, the only reason why we got away from a cap is because it was the attorney's recommendation.
Okay.
Because in other communities, they were seeing people being sued because of the cap, because they didn't have a rubric to be able to say, okay, this person's application, I'm taking this person's application because of, they hit all of the check boxes, right? So I'm taking their application and I'm gonna allow them to go through the process versus having natural buffers, like the parks, like the schools, like all of the stuff that, would come into play. And then other marijuana establishments, they would just knock them out naturally without us saying that, I took Rebecca's application, she's over here, she get one license, and, it is what it is.
Because the space that we have and the areas that it's going to, it's gonna cap itself out anyway. I mean, at some point,
Right.
so it's not like we really have to put that there because we have certain things in place already to say you can't do this within this area and it has to be done in this area. It cannot be done in that area. So we really don't have to have that actual, we only gonna have 10 here.
Yeah.
Because
And other communities were in lawsuits for that based off of caps. But however, I think, going back to Councilman Chisholm, as we were talking about Dearborn just saw an influx of hookah lounges within the last 5 years, where everybody just started popping up hookah everywhere. And Dearborn Heights just saw the foresight of, oh no, we only gonna allow 2. And no one really, and that's been on their books, I talked to Mayor Bazzi about it, and it's only been on their books for a few years, and they ain't had no pushback about a hookah bar, So, I mean, if you guys are saying, we need to put caps on them, and maybe that works, and then let somebody bring it up, Hey, Inkster only has 4 licenses for hookah, but at the same time, they gotta go through the state process, and I know, talking to the state folks, that those process are pretty heavy, because now you're dealing with the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And that's the whole thing with it. Then they're regulating you.
So they're not just getting bombarded with all these people, because you gotta be really,
Oh yeah, you gotta be super clean, don't have no issues on
when it comes
nothing.
to what
Sure.
you're talking about, Kim.
Yeah,
They making sure.
ATF is regulating this. For sure.
All right. Any further discussion on this matter before we go back to any other concerns that Commissioner Kane had?
I'm all set, Chair.
Commissioner King.
I'm all set, thank you.
Are you all set? Okay. Commissioners, any further items to discuss in regards to the ordinance?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Daniels.
I just wanted to know, is there a reason why, section 125.23, why, C is highlighted?
Outdoor smoking areas must be entirely enclosed by the.
Is there a reason why it's highlighted? Is there a reason why?
Mine is highlighted too.
Yeah. I just
Alright,
wanted to know
any
the
reason
reason
why
why
it's
it's highlighted.
Can you tell me what section you're in, sorry?
Section 125.23.
Item C.
Is that an error?
125, section 125.23,
Right. And then-
outdoor activities.
Yep. Page 14.
And then go down to C.
Oh, no, yeah, I
Yeah, it's highlighted.
see. Outdoor smoking areas must be fairly enclosed by decorative fencing. I think that means that someone added a comment saying that they wanted to have outdoor smoking areas and the condition for these areas to be required to have decorative fencing.
Yeah.
So it's just an addition and to see if you guys liked it.
Oh, so that wasn't here before? That's why you
Yeah, I think
highlighted it.
that's why it's highlighted.
Oh, okay, gotcha, okay. Outdoor smoking, so this wasn't here before, and now it's here.
Mhm.
So we look at that, outdoor smoking areas must be entirely enclosed by decorative fencing?
Yeah, I mean, you want to do it, you don't want
Decorative
anything.
fencing? I'm like,
Well, a nice vinyl fence.
Yeah, you don't want to have,
Yeah, people don't want to look at people sitting over there smoking.
so it can't just,
Nice
no,
direct-
so decorative, do I have to have like,
nice.
Yeah, they do, they do, yeah.
It looks nice, you know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
outside, you know.
so
Yeah.
I can have a wood fence, right? It don't have to be decorative. Decorative and wood is different.
No, it should be decorative.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it should look nice, I guess. That's-
Something
yeah.
appealing.
So I can't have a nice wood or a nice white fence.
Now, we asked you to spend a couple extra thousand for a
It's gotta
better.
be, it gotta be decorative.
Yeah, we want you to spend a couple extra thousand to get a nicer one.
Commercial
Okay.
grade.
I just wanted to make sure, because it says decorative, so I didn't, I'm just saying,
I'm
like,
gonna say,
I just wanted to make sure we knew what we were saying.
Commissioner Williams, and then let's talk about the definition of the
Well, I wanted to bring something back to our attention when we were talking about the marijuana situation and the definition. I just noticed that on the last page, under prohibited activities, language has been added. E, marijuana prohibited. Marijuana use, whether medical or recreational, shall be prohibited on the premises. So they did add that portion to address the other issues that we were just talking about. So it's actually in this draft.
Okay.
I'm sorry, repeat that whole thing you just said.
Where we were just discussing earlier about the definition of the non-tobacco products, and saying that it looks like it's worded in a language that we would assume that it's being allowed. It states here, under prohibited activities on section 125.25, and I guess this is part of it's in red, so this was just recently added.
Right.
E, marijuana prohibited. Marijuana use, whether medical or recreational, shall be prohibited on premises. So they did take that, so that has been addressed in the prohibited activities.
Right, that was
Still- it
added,
still
that's
needs
why
to-
it's red.
So that was added to answer our question when we were discussing earlier about the definition. So they have addressed that in this language under the prohibited activities.
And that's good, but it still needs to come out of that area in the front because it's a
They
conflict.
need to be separated.
That it has to come
Yeah.
out. Right, that's good that line is there and that's fine. It still needs to come out of where it's at right now though, because that way you're gonna
It's
create
confusing.
confusion,
Yes.
which brings liability.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since Commissioner Daniels raised the issue about the decorative fencing.
I'll speak to that as well.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I actually think that we need to do something separate. Like, I think it's fine because we can anticipate that we're gonna have to deal with this issue with like regarding these uses that we know are in the, or at least one we know is in the pipeline. But I think that if we don't already have a code that speaks to outdoor patio uses broadly, that I think we need to address that because design guidelines to come into play there, so.
I guess two things with that, just touching base on what you both said in regards to the fencing. We could change the word from decorative to screening fencing, because we already have something screening on the book with the planning commission. And then that way, as always, the commission has the right to waive or impose what type of fencing.
I mean, because really that decorative, it's really just, I think that's a burden. I mean, because you're saying decorative, I mean, you can, I think if it's nice, because I'm all about aesthetics. I love beautiful aesthetics, so don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, when you say it's got to be decorative, what do you mean?
And that's where design guidelines will come
Yeah.
into play, where we can have like examples of materials. But we also want to be real clear about what it is we want to see,
what it
because
is
we
we
don't
wanna
want something
'Cause I
that can
definitely
be
don't wanna
destroyed
be-
easily either.
Yeah, with the screening fencing, that's all spelled out already, and why we're requiring it. That way we can say, point blank period, we're screening you from the general public, being able to see you and cause, what do they call it? In the city of Dearborn, they have a quality of life ordinance, and that's how they shut their bars down. And I guess you could put it under that, but that's not what we're doing. But for lack of better words, you could say, nope, it's just gotta be fenced in. If you go to Kelly's Irish Pub at the corner of Carlisle and
Yeah, I see
Telegraph,
that they got nice
it's fenced
decorative.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very, and it's decorative.
yeah. Well, yeah,
It is.
I would say we can use screening fencing, and that way we don't have to worry about definitions for decorative and all of that, because all the fencing types is already in the screening fencing ordinance. As far as if they're gonna use vinyl, if they're gonna use other material that's not necessarily vinyl, like the bar that I just named has, it's a different material, it still looks nice, it looks like a rock type of thing, but it's not, and I think it's cheaper, it's sturdy. And of course, screening talks to it because it's non-man-made. You're not having somebody come and tear some pallets apart and put them all together.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Exactly.
done had a citizen do that.
Exactly. That's true.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so
That's true.
that, if that's cool with y'all, I mean, if that satisfies that particular thing. And then, what you were talking about, the outdoor activities area and design, we don't have anything on that side. I don't know if that will go on the to-do list?
Yes,
Or, okay.
on our ever-growing to-do list.
Okay,
To the chair, I just want to speak to this whole screening thing, which I'm okay with. The only thing that I would say though is that we tend to give out a lot of waivers. And so that's the only thing that would concern me, because we give out a lot of screening waivers. And so but I think that something like this, you know, we definitely want that to happen. You know, you want it to be screened in, you want it to look nice.
Yeah.
Because I know that for some of the businesses, since I've been on here, we seem to do a lot of waivers for screening sometimes for some of the businesses, and I wouldn't want to get into the habit of
Waving.
waiving in particular for this type of business,
absolutely.
so.
Yeah,
And don't get me wrong now, I definitely think the fences should be there, but I think when we say decorative,
Right.
that's,
I hear you, and
Very
I'm
specific.
okay with what he's saying, I'm just saying, like, since we're discussing it, I just know that that's something that we grant waivers for a lot of the times because of, you know, expenses or whatever the case may be, but something like that, you want it to look decent. Some of the other businesses, maybe, okay, you're like, it's a garage or a, you know, car place or something, you know, maybe you're okay with that, but something like this, I feel differently about. But-
Yeah, 'cause some of the waivers we've granted, you know, for example, have been, well, you ain't necessarily got to put a wall up, but y'all got to put these bushes up to create that.
hedges or something like that.
Yeah, and then of course they're required to water them. They have to put down a deposit because if they don't keep them up and it dies and all of that stuff, versus, and that's much cheaper. Because I think another business, their architect was telling them, oh, this is gonna be like some tens of thousands of dollars to put that up, when the bushes were only like maybe $20 or $30 a piece. But that was them upcharging it, and the applicant didn't know, because they were saying, we can't afford this. And I said, what are you talking about? And, you know, and they showed like what the architect wrote on their plans. I was like, are you serious?
That was a get over, they was trying to get over
Yeah.
on them.
And they were and the architect was telling them the city's, you know, putting all this stuff on. You know, that's not true. This is in our ordinance. Every other business has been granted rights to do X, Y, and Z depending on what they are. And we, as the planning commission, grant waivers to help you out.
Right.
So, they were just, you know, just unfortunately, they just didn't know it. And we got past that point. That was a couple years ago, but yeah, that's why I said screen and fence, because then that way, as a commission, we can talk about that and what it may or may not be. Just like with the one entity right here on Beach Daily, the ordinance really specifically talked about that type of establishment needing a concrete wall all the way around. And they were like, it's gonna cost us 6 figures to do something like that. We waived them to put in a different type of fence in those so that they didn't have to do that, but then they kept coming back at us, well, when the snowplow hits it, when it get cold, when it get this, they just didn't want to do it at the end of the day. But yeah, that's why I suggested screen and fence, and I think that particular language in an ordinance that's already out there would speak to that, and it wouldn't cause any too much riffraff. Anybody else? Alrighty, I forgot who had the floor. Oh, Commissioner Daniels did. You brought up a point in.
Yeah, I think I was last.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. And Commissioner Faison, does that satisfy? Okay. Commissioners, anything further regarding this ordinance? Marvin.
Yeah, I didn't know if you guys want to take a couple minutes here to discuss where you would like to have these uses.
Oh, the zoning.
Yeah, and then that would help guide staff to adjust the zoning ordinance so we can add these uses in. Right now, we're considering them, as I said, bar and lounge.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're okay with that for right now, you know, we can continue to move forward. But if you want to make this a little more urgent and not consider them bar lounges, then we need to update the zoning ordinance.
Well, any suggestions, anybody? Me and the mayor know, for instance, what's about to happen.
So
What street is that? Arcola or is that Trowbridge? Or Trombley? That's Arcola. Okay. Go ahead.
I don't know what that word means.
Oh, no, because of,
Are we not talking about it like?
Are we talking about the language, or are we talking about?
Okay, we're not
the
talking
zoning
about it,
of
all right.
the- I think I got confused about.
We talking about where we want the establishments to be able to exist.
Oh, because, and then, so, the reason why you brought up bar and lounge, why did you bring up bar and lounge? Why did you bring that part into it?
So right now, in order to perform site plan reviews, special land use reviews for hookah lounges and cigar bars, staff has been using the use bar and lounge
Okay,
to direct where these applications are allowed. So staff considers the most synonymous use to hookah, cigar bar, or smoking lounge, I guess, to bar and lounge. But is it the planning commission's intent for bar and lounge to be considered smoking lounges? Are you okay with them being special land uses within the B2, 3, and TCD districts?
okay.
so the reason, I guess alluded to the comment that I had made was, we have a community of traditionalists, if you will. If something wasn't there already and they're used to that particular lifestyle and something new comes about, there's gonna be issues that they're gonna express. For instance, once this place is up and going and you don't know the demographic, and when I talk about demographic, I don't mean just race, but the age group and stuff that will be frequented. Now, for instance, I used to have 12-inch subwoofers in my 98 Neon. You can hear
You
me
said what?
12-inch subwoofers in my 98 Neon. You can hear me from the end of the block when I turn my amp on, and sometimes it was intentional. Okay, I wanted you to hear me coming home. I wanted you to know Steven was on the street. So you might have that same thing because low sound waves carry. I could have my speaker, my volume on my radio on 14, and my mom would swear she could hear me all through the house, and I would be in the driveway. You couldn't even hear the music outside my car, but you could hear it in the house because the bass carried. So the reason when she was bringing up zoning, you will have those instances, motorcycles for instance, how loud the exhausts are, how loud the sound systems are on them. That's just a motorcycle. Some people start their vehicles, they start their motorcycles and have them running, and all of that is blaring. And then, of course, the neighbors will contact the city about noise ordinance or noise issues and stuff like that. Then we reach out to the business owner, and it becomes a back and forth type of thing. Or you might just have somebody who drove past, somebody who parked at a different establishment, a neighbor's house, they just hear it and think it's coming from that establishment. So I was just talking about zoning to a certain extent because, one, we have to prepare for what we got to prepare for. And two, where exactly do we want to place them? Because this one is going to abut, and that's why I asked him, is this on Trombley or behind Arcola? Because...
Previous concerns.
Previous concerns, yeah, let's put it that way. And if we start potting them, say, just the way our community is designed, next to neighborhoods, just because that might be where stuff is available at, how do we just handle it appropriately? Because the people aren't going to want to accept change. And when we're talking about they can't operate between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m., we have a community in some areas that used to go into bed by 10 and it being quiet the rest of the night. So that's kind of what I was alluding to when I made that comment in regards towards the mayor. And then when I said something about zoning, when Mara was bringing up in these particular areas, I guess we really have to look at what areas are which, because Clayton just happens to be next door to a liquor store, and how far away it is from the block, nobody,
Nobody's around them.
But we got places that are grandfathered in that are literally in neighborhoods and maybe an alleyway from a house and stuff like that. And then this hookah lounge, not predicting anything bad, but it's right behind a neighborhood. It's right.
It is. I mean, I live on Somerset.
Yeah. So that the zoning part, TCD, there's no houses really down in TCD
I
for
hope
sure.
nobody coming up and down my street trying to go to, I'm getting all this traffic coming out Somerset.
They're gonna be parking in your driveway.
Using my Wi-Fi because they at the hookah bar.
So you said TCD, B2, B3.
That's it. These two, B3 TCDs.
That's where bar and lounge is permitted.
Yeah, correct.
Some time ago, we also were talking about an entertainment district, which is,
Yeah,
what, is
overlay.
that like an overlay? Okay.
Yeah, that's on Michigan Ave between Henry Ruff and Middlebelt.
And so is that B3?
The general business district, correct?
Yep. I thought so. Couldn't remember.
Yep, speed 3.
So through the chair, I'm just, so we can get this going, like, I am for it to stay with the bars and lounges.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Repeat that. Say what you-
I am for it to stay under the regulations of the bars and lounges.
Okay. Stay under the bar and lounge. Okay.
I am as well.
It makes sense.
Yeah, because I mean, it's still, the regulations is gonna be extremely similar.
Great.
But in terms of, now, we want to see certain kinds of establishments in our downtown. So does it have to be the same as in a TCD as it is in a B2 or B3?
As it
That's
relates
what
to,
has
I'm
to be
sorry,
the
Mr.
same.
No,
Chair.
you're good.
Jumping on you,
I was
man.
turning over to look at John and I had to make sure we was all on the same
Right,
page.
no, what I was asking the commissioner was, when you say the same, so are you suggesting that we make some special exceptions if you're in the TCD? Like if we were talking about those buffers before?
Well, it could be buffers, it could, well, I think everything else, I guess it probably, we have been very traditional when it comes to special land uses. Some other cities, don't apply as many regs on certain businesses, but if we're going to continue on that path, then at least in TCD, I think the number of them or the buffers between them, I would change that in the TCD over B2 and B3. I mean, even in the overlay, it just seems like that's kind of what you want in the entertainment district, isn't it?
That's true.
Through the chair, I mean, I guess if we're gonna have this discussion, I know sometimes we be going kind of long, and I got a kid to pick up, but But I just want to say, I think that that's part of the thing. Like I know Councilwoman Watley, I know that's kind of, she said this like 2 meetings in a row, and I agree. I think the discussion really has to be had on what type of a city do you want Inkster to be. I don't smoke, you know, I obviously don't do marijuana. I'm okay with whoever does, right? However, there's still a bit of a stigma. There's some things that I know from my personal experience on what do we want to be? Do we want to have smoking lounges littered throughout the city of Inkster? Do we want to have hookah bars and marijuana, you know, all these different type of marijuana things in the city? Again, I'm not a judgmental person. It's whatever your opinion is. Obviously, my opinion is that that's not what the city of Inkster should be. And so, I mean, are we going to have a CD district? Because I'm going to say this, I'm not coming because I don't like to smoke. And I'm not coming to a place where you got 5 hookah bars and smoke. I'm not coming to do that. You know, again, here and there, I'm fine with. I think every type of business should have its place, and you have a few and stuff like that. I'm good with that. You got a few of those, you got a few bars or whatever. But again, not on me. I'm just saying I think that's the discussion that has to be had is what type of city, what, you know, specifically. I know we did that 5-year master plan, and we said we want this downtown district, and we want this entertainment section, we want this a movie theater, whatever, you know, but now we're starting to talk about some of these things. I think, you know, collectively, whether it's here, city council, you know, that's the discussion that needs to be had on what is this city really gonna look like from a traditionalist type of view that Steve is talking about. Is it, you know, are we gonna get all of the new stuff that's coming because we need the business? I just think that that's like a bigger discussion that needs to be had, you know, and then whatever the majority rules, right? Whatever the majority says they want, then I think that answers that question. Do you want just a you know, a line full of smoking, you know, lounges and stuff like that? Again, don't make me no difference. I just know for me personally, that's not something that I'm going to be going to. But if that's what the city collectively decides, I think that's fine.
And I would say, through the chair, that I totally agree 100%, because, you know, the city of Inkster is 6.2 square miles likened to a city block in the city of Detroit. So for us, as it relates to having mixed use and having different things, I think that's very important for, you know, everybody to attract different people, as long as it's legal, above board, moral, and all that other stuff. The only caveat that I had, and I wanted to make sure that that was clear, is that again, in the TCD, if we're talking about a buffer between 1,200 feet between either one of those type of businesses. So I'm okay with having a cigar bar and one hookah lounge downtown Inkster, you know, just because it's so small. It's a small footprint. So you don't want to oversaturate it, because that could possibly happen. You know, that happened in Dearborn, and that's why they did what they did. That's why they're imposing the quality of life stuff within the city of Dearborn, because it's hookah all over the place. I mean, people are actually building onto their homes. They're building these elaborate garages where they have like a whole hookah lounge outside, because that's part of their culture, you know. So the city of Dearborn now are actually imposing, you know, not necessarily fines, but, you know, if you want to build this, okay, this is how much it's going to cost you on your residence. So with the city of Inkster, I think that it's important for us, like you said, having those discussions. Of course, that comes out of the master plan. But then what's in front of us now, and what can we create? What can we do, you know, in order to create some businesses, create that foot traffic, create that, you know, that ambiance as it relates to, you know, just things that, you know, like for me as a business person, I don't necessarily smoke the big stogie cigars, but a lot of the business people that I know love that, and they invite me out to cigar bars in the city of Dearborn or in Dearborn Heights. Now, do I want a cigar bar on every corner?
Right.
No. I mean, do I want a marijuana dispensary on every corner? No. However, I think you regulate it to that where you say, okay, here's your buffers, and then, you know, whoever get it, then they get it. The race to the finish line is another thing that we need to take care of, just because, you know, we expose ourselves to possible litigation.
Correct.
You know,
For sure.
So I'm with you 100%, Commissioner Kane, with that and that sentiment.
Okay.
I'm done, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else? Alrighty. Anything further about, does that solidify minds, or satisfy my eyes with regards to the zoning. Let me put it that way.
I think it makes sense, Mr. Chair. I mean, you have, what is it, Michigan Avenue, B3, and then you, what is it, Inkster Road, the Middle Belt? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, B2, B3, the town center district.
Yeah, I mean, you know. Yeah.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I just also want to point out too that planning staff's offering a list of recommendations to the office of the mayor on how we move forward with our master plan update and then also the zoning ordinance update. So one thing that we did discuss briefly before the mayor met with the senator is zoning technical review. So that would authorize the planning department to perform a technical review of the zoning and see what's needed, how we can update to current policy, latest trends, also align with RRC, the Redevelopment Ready Communities Program, the master plan, and then also address whatever pain points that the planning commission has, and the office of the mayor has, and the city council has regarding the zoning ordinance. So this is a work plan item that we're still continuing to move forward with, and I'm taking notes on what to include as pain points.
All right. Thank you very much. Are there any further discussions, suggestions, or concerns about the smoking lounges ordinance draft? Mark?
Does the planning commission wish to decide a public hearing date?
Why not?
I'm sorry.
She said, does the planning commission wish to decide a public hearing date?
No, I was saying, I did have.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. So this is a draft, so now we're gonna, so before we do this training, are we gonna get another draft or we're gonna have a final? So at what point does this become final?
After it goes to city council and the public hearings and all of that.
Okay, okay. So why it stays a draft until all of that goes through?
Mhm.
Okay.
So I know you need 15 days to announce, publish and all that stuff for public hearing. So we're really looking at the month of May or June, right? Okay, how soon do you guys want a public hearing to occur on this draft? Because I think we're done with our suggestions and recommendations. Now it's time for the public to have the opportunity to weigh in.
Okay. And you said they need 15 days?
15 day notice, yes.
15-day notice, I mean?
Councilwoman Wiley had a,
Oh,
I just want to know, is it permissible for me, because I'm sitting here just squirming, and y'all talking about the same
well, you're the only person from the public, so why not?
Okay, the first thing that I was concerned with was what Commissioner Kane brought up, that is not explicit enough. Now, I know the emails that I sent out, I said strictly prohibited. Now, they did that in the last half, but it just being in that first part is misleading. It is not understandable, because you're saying none products equal this, and then you got marijuana in there. And then too, I also said byproducts, marijuana byproducts too, like the CBD oil or the cookies or the whatever you can make with it. I have no idea. I'm like Miss Kane, I don't smoke, so.
Neither do I. I've
So
never
I'm
been to
gonna-
a hookah lounge.
Huh?
I said, neither do I. I've never been to a hookah lounge or a bar or marijuana.
You never been in a bar?
No, I didn't say bar. I said marijuana.
Okay, I'm just saying that where the marijuana is concerned in this smoking lounge, they should be totally separate. It should be explicit. Because I am of a mind that when you leave a window open, somebody gonna crawl through it, right? So you have to be specific. You always have to be specific where this is concerned. Now, the other thing is, it might be a good idea for you all to include ordinance on your email chain, because a lot of the ordinances you all were asking about, she can refer to automatically because this is what she does. So when you're saying, isn't that covered in another part of our whatever, or isn't that, she can tell you, right off the bat, that if you look in section whatever, this covers it. So you may want to do that when you're, working with ordinances. The other thing is when you were talking about the who was first. Didn't we have a time stamp when we initially started this marijuana stuff?
Yeah, I think it was changed though, for whatever reason, I don't know for
Okay,
sure. That
well,
wasn't
that's
under-
another
under
thing
us.
to suggest. I mean, if you were in line, I mean, if you had your information there, then your process, regardless to how fast the person behind you gets through. You understand that? You're still time stamped for this.
Right, you
So,
have a certain
and that-
amount of time to complete.
And that would protect you, you know, because, whew, I'm winded. They always talk about lawsuits. Anybody can sue you for anything. You know, what you hope is that you have adequate representation who will repel lawsuits. So you're gonna have that. It's if they prevail. Now, you were talking about these buffers and things of that nature. The city council has already passed a marijuana license to a person who was within the 300 from the church. So these things do happen. I mean, Samantha Bivens has a license and she's within the buffers for the church. So what we have to make sure is we don't do these things. Guys, I'm sure you all know, 4 votes on council takes whatever, you know, no matter how bad you rail and scream against things, if 4 of them want it, that's what happens. So that has already happened, and any rejections that are given, you were talking about using BS&A, but those things should be in writing or in email, because the one thing we don't want to do is stop having a paper trail. Because people say anything. They come back and say, well, I was told, you know it, you get it in your businesses all the time. Well, they said, or he said, and you say, who did you talk to? Well, I don't know, they were standing there, you know, so anything you do in this instance should be in writing, so you have a paper trail. What city government is all about is liability, protecting yourself from all of these things out there. Now, if I'm going too far, y'all stop me, okay? And I did mention the byproducts, to include the byproducts, right? And anything that's made from those. I'd like to see that within there. And that's all I had to say before you got through with the ordinance, okay?
All righty. Thank you.
It's gonna come back before the council. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
You're good. You're good.
Mr. Chair, through the chair, but it is gonna come to a public hearing in the council.
Extremely
So,
prepared
yeah,
because having listening to
sure.
to you all.
For sure.
And know what your concerns are,
Yeah.
which I think all of the council should do, but I'm not in charge of them.
You have, you and the public both had an opportunity at the public hearing and the council meetings and all of that good stuff, so.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Faison.
this will go through like a long process though, right? Because it's a public hearing here, plus it goes out to you all.
For 2 readings at the city
Okay,
council level.
okay.
So that means it's at least 45 days,
Yeah,
60 days.
Oh, more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's why I said we looking at,
because we're talking about 15-day notice, okay.
looking at
and
May or
then-
June.
Yeah,
Well, May to start the process, June or July to finish, depending on what comes up, all that good stuff. Alrighty, any further discussion on smoking lounge ordinance draft? Or, I'm sorry, we were at picking a date for the public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
I opened my calendar and I closed it.
so did we talk about, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think we talked about, did we want to have this on a planning commission date?
For the public hearing?
Right.
Yes, we
So
normally do.
we're definitely looking at a Monday,
Right.
right? So,
We're either talking about 25th of April or we moving right into May.
which would be the 9th.
Yup, the 9th or the 23rd. It's just a fact of the matter of how soon we want to have it, that's all. Because we've,
Okay.
I think, exhausted our discussion. It's just how soon we want to have it for the public.
Through the chair, we probably just want to go ahead and, I mean, I don't think, like you just said, we've kind of exhausted our stuff. We're probably going to see another draft and another draft. Might as well go ahead and just do it on our next meeting date,
Okay.
which would be that next, not, well, yeah, the next one, right?
The
Does that give
23rd.
us, that doesn't, no, that doesn't give us 15 days, so.
I was gonna ask Mar if they gave us
Oh,
some.
That doesn't give us
that's what it
15
does,
days.
15.
That doesn't give us
It
15.
So we move right into May.
So maybe
So I
the,
need May 9th.
yeah.
So May 9th. Everybody good with that? Okay. I mean, that's a planning commission date. I just wanted to make sure you felt that was enough time, that's all.
Or is that too long of a time?
It's not too
Wait,
long
Kate.
a time. I think May 9th will work.
Okay.
And if not, do we have the right to have it on May 23rd?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll shoot for May 9th.
It's all predicated on the statute, so you have to publish it first.
Oh,
So that's what's taking the time.
Okay, so May 9th it is, and if push come to shove,
May 23rd.
May 23rd. We just want to make sure, just make a note that May 9th, we need, so the difficult part in that is if, I know sometimes we have things going on and we have to call off and not attend the meeting. But once they put that public hearing notice out for May 9th, let's try to all ensure that we'll be here to at least to have a quorum, because if not, then we have to cancel and we can't have a public hearing, then we got to reissue the notice and go through that process again and either have it on a special Monday, like there's a 5th Monday, but that's the holiday, or we got to push it into, into June. So that's all, just be cognizant of that.
Well, May 8th is Mother's Day, so I don't know, I know people, that's a big deal for some people, I don't know. I just thought about that, looking at the calendar.
But then, and it costs us too every time we publish.
Yeah. Well, May 8th,
It costs us every time we put it off.
Yeah, we gotta publish it. It costs us to publish it.
well, May 8th is Sunday.
I know, I'm just still saying, people,
Maybe out of town with their mother.
they do,
okay.
yeah.
Well, no, that's why I was bringing it up now, so we can discuss it. If y'all said to say, I'm not gonna be here, I'm not gonna be here, I'm not gonna be here, then we not doing it tonight.
Because I'm trying to get my kids to take me somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, the truth
I
comes
wish I
out.
wasn't gonna be here, but
Comes out.
I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to, I'm pushing.
Hey, speak it into existence.
And then if I don't go nowhere, I don't know what I'm gonna do that night.
Gotcha. So that's one. That's one person. Anybody else? And I'm being honest, like anybody else. If you say it now so we don't get this notice out there, and then everybody say, you know what? I got second thoughts.
Sounds like the 23rd, Mr. President.
Yeah, you say just to be safe.
23rd.
I think that would give you more time to make sure that everybody, that you have the forum. I think that would.
And we got the 15 days. I mean, I think it just makes room for all of that.
May 23rd it is.
And this is the public hearing.
Yep. Cool. Alrighty, moving right along. Any further discussion on that before we move on to new business? Do we need a vote or anything on any of that? No, okay, I didn't think so. Alright, we are down to new business. Item A, Planning Commission Redevelopment Ready Community Subcommittee. Discussion of creating a RRC subcommittee to move work items forward. Discuss volunteers, meeting time, and milestones. See Appendix A. And that should be the last page of your packet. I'm not sure which one of the illustrious persons is leading this discussion, but Mara or Commissioner Faison, go right ahead.
This is just based off of our previous conversations to move easy items forward that are required to become redevelopment ready certified. And the goal of this agenda item is to discuss one, the subcommittee, and the meeting times, 2 meeting times, and 3, the milestones. And Commissioner Vice Chair Faison sent out an email outlining some possible milestones and some possible volunteers.
Sounds like you have the floor.
All right.
Yeah.
So all of these are just suggestions and they are, they can all be changed. But we have, over the last few meetings, we've been talking about how can we advance some of the things that are in our work plan and how do we go about designing a joint training that is something that we feel really good about, that we're setting a good tone, that we are working with staff to set a really good agenda, that we have good turnout, and how can we put a plan together to make that happen. So I just put some ideas together, making some assumptions that the purpose of this ad hoc work group that we've been talking about, or committee that we've been talking about is, just we're clear on what the purpose is, some of the things that we're setting out to do, and then how we might know that we're achieving the things that we want to do. So, I think the first thing that we would want to set out to do is to support the staff in hosting this joint training. I presume because there's so many people that need to be invited, communications that need to be had, materials that need to be developed, and some kind of facilitation plan for that day, that might be one thing that this committee can support. It's been raised, but I don't think we really put any structure around it, so that's one part of it. Another thing that has been raised is that we could use ourselves, the planning commission, as a test case for what it would look like to recruit and onboard members. We currently have an opening, so that left, this whole conversation about what kinds of materials do we provide new members, how do we recruit them, how do we help people understand what the expectations are. So that would be potential milestone number 2. And then more broadly, there's just the opportunity to, once our annual report has gone to council, it's approved, there might be an opportunity to just kind of broadly share that annual report and kind of get it out in circulation. I don't think it should be something that like you submit it and you're done with it. I think that in an effort to recruit people to participate in this joint training, we might share that as a part of that invitation, and also share with them our work plan as a means of trying to get to better engagement with these other bodies. And then, it just goes into some recommended next steps. If you see here, I was voluntold, and I'm happy to do it. Commissioner Daniels was thrown in the mix, and I think she accepted. But this will be a great opportunity to identify if we have others that want to participate. And then, and generally, are you okay with this being the plan, with these being some of the things that we would talk about in between meetings, working with staff to, to organize these things? Like, is there support for this?
Commissioners, feel free to weigh in.
Through the chair, yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think we said that, before, yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, through the chair as well, I'm full support. I thank Commissioner Faison for even bringing this to our attention. We had a chance to meet with the actual, is it the executive director for RRC?
Planner.
Is that who she is? Yeah, so the senior planner for RRC, and they gave us like a checklist of all the items that we need to do. Back in 2017, the city opted into the redevelopment ready communities action plan, if you will, and through the efforts of Commissioner Faison, she kind of saved us for us to be considered and continued on with the RRC process. So we met with the senior planner for RRC, me and my executive assistant, along with Mara and Jamie. We met on a couple of occasions now, and we've actually done a few trainings where Mara and Jamie are kind of like experts at the RRC, but it's actually it's a really comprehensive program to make sure that the city of Inkster is not only successful in possibly getting monies from the federal government, from the state, and of course the county, as it relates to being ready for development, but also to just bringing the master plan full circle, and then us always being engaged, and it's making it an actual breathing document that's forever changing. Most times what happens with the city, well, us, all cities for the most part, is that we do our master plan every 5 years, and then nothing happens from there. There's no tweaks, no changes, nobody's talking about it. With this particular instance that the state set up as it relates to redevelopment ready communities, you have to be engaged in your master plan. Your DDA has to be participating. Your planning commission has to be participating in order for you to get this certification. Right now, I think we have, what is the certification that we do have, Mara, that we check the box for?
The essentials.
The essentials, but it's essentials.
And then certified, so there's 2 different tiers.
Right, so we know like the essentials were like cool because we had a couple of you, I think Commissioner Daniels, you participated. Yeah, you participated, and a couple of members of the DDA participated. So by you guys doing that, you kind of like saved our line, so made us essential. Like, okay, we see that you want to do it, but what are you doing to do it? But it's this whole comprehensive plan that the city has to check these boxes, and we're working to make sure that we do that. And I believe that what Commissioner Faison is suggesting not only is going to help support the efforts, especially from the administrative side, because we're scouts and crew. We don't have, all the other ancillary people that we need to really help drive this thing without doing our day-to-day stuff. So this body is important as it relates to being able to volunteer, being able to bring in those ideas, going to those trainings, and just helping us overall really get to the status that we should be, which is certified. So that's what we're working on right now. So I really appreciate you and applaud you for doing that, because we could have missed that opportunity.
Thank you. And I just want to point out that all of the people that went through the training are all the women. We got one more.
What you trying to say?
I think this body has evolved in a really good way.
Good point. I like it. I like that point. I like that point, Kim. Good point. Right. Challenge accepted.
I'd just like to add, if I may, when we talk about the RRC certified communities, when you see that those cities have those certifications, it's a big deal. So when we know that when they see that Inkster is a RRC certified, I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, that we've gone through that. I mean, it's like it's a difference in being a real estate agent and a realtor. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm a realtor behind me, I've gone through some different things. I'm not just a real estate agent. There are certain things that you have to go through.
You set yourself
Right.
different
So when
stamp.
they see that stamp is on the city of Inkster, they know, okay, so
That's right. They put in the work. They want this here.
we're not just,
They're engaged.
right.
And that's the key, and I think that for our community is something that we have to move forward. We have to reestablish how we are looked at municipally.
Absolutely.
That's the key. Because we've been
And we want to
stagnated.
keep putting it out there.
Yeah,
The
because
city of
we've been
Inkster,
stagnated.
our city community.
Yes, but it opens up opportunities that only other communities, I'm
Yes.
just gonna say it that way.
Yes.
Other communities
Yes,
get that we want.
yes,
If we don't.
yes.
And it also comes to that part where we're always talking about people are not coming to save us. We have to be the one to do this.
Yes.
No one else is going to
Yes.
do this for us. Like, we
Yes.
have to do this. And if other people see that we're engaged, then other people will follow. And, that's the hope,
Yes.
It's almost inevitable, actually.
Beautiful.
So it sounds like everybody's volunteering. That's what it sounds like to me.
But I could definitely get some I think we need some other people from outside of the council.
We gotta go to this training.
I mean, because I know that they're, I'm just other people that's of different mindsets, I'm just.
Well, a question I have, I guess I was gonna ask, how many people does the subcommittee be proposed to compose of?
Okay.
I think we'll take all the volunteers we can get, right? I mean, right now we have 2.
Okay, you got 2. And I heard you say something about, getting people
3?
from 3.
All right.
Well,
Oh, I gotta join the girls club.
the reason I ask is it's a subcommittee, but we don't want a quorum of the planning commission on the subcommittee.
Okay.
Right, and that's
We
So,
say we don't
through the
want
chair,
to,
right.
we don't
I was
want
gonna ask that
a
question.
quorum.
Of the planning commission on the
Right.
subcommittee.
Got you. Okay.
So, we
Okay.
got 3, that's fine, but we
Okay.
will need some outsiders, because if we put 2 more from the planning commission on there, it's just the planning commission.
And that's why I was telling her that I think we really should go outside,
Yeah, you need a couple of members from DDA,
of the planning commission. I really do believe that.
you know what I mean, beautification committee.
There you go, yep. She's right out there, out in the audience. There you go. She might as
Oh, she's
well.
trying not, she don't hear us. She's trying not, she hear us. You
No,
don't
she can't
hear
hear
us, Council.
I didn't hear
well, Councilwoman, we need you to pay attention to this, because we need your help.
So we were talking
I
about,
don't know what for, so I don't get into things if I don't understand what y'all doing.
Okay, we're about to give it to you right now. Come on, y'all.
What is it that
So-
you all are requesting?
so we're talking about a subcommittee for,
Oh, no, I don't know.
we got a solid no.
She said that's a hard no.
All right, we got a solid no. So I think
know.
what happened is you,
I know.
I guess you all can solicit the DDA and who else?
Beautification.
Beautification committee for persons.
DDA and beautification?
Yeah,
Okay.
for persons from those committees.
Parks and Rec
You know what? There were two people from other boards and commissions who went through training with Commissioner
Oh.
Daniels and
That was the
Octavia?
Octavia
And Angela Dotson.
and Angela.
Yes.
They're part of the DDA.
Okay.
So we
So
could
you
reach
got
out
the
to
DDA, you should be doing the DDA, the Rec Commission, and the Beautification Commission.
Well, if I just may say one thing, I think we need to start reaching out in the community. You
That's
know,
what
you
we're
all
talking
are already part of the city. You want what's best for them.
Yes.
But there are people out there who don't know, don't understand, and would be excellent assets. Remember,
Absolutely.
we are an older community. We have retirees that have very special skills and attributes that would be perfect for them.
Okay.
So that would be one of the suggestions. Get other people who are not necessarily within the confines of the city to become part of it, you know? Because once you buy in, you're a lot more active in what
Yes,
happens
yes.
in your community. So maybe there might be something we could do to address, because I have a bunch of volunteers. We were trying to get volunteers during the last administration, and I have a whole page full of people that said they wanted to do. So maybe I can forward that information to you all, and you can make contact with those people to see if they're still interested, and then give them something specific to look at, or to become a part of, and that might be better.
Yeah, and this would be just specifically for the subcommittee. Again, like I said, I guess let us know how many people you all are thinking need to be on there, because you don't want to oversaturate it.
We don't want to oversaturate.
But you do want people that are going to be active and give good feedback from the community and everything like that. So yeah, I don't know which way you want to do it. Of course, we can announce it at council meeting, and then I don't know if you want to maybe if you create a flyer or something like that and say the Inkster Planning Commission is forming a subcommittee. We are looking for interested parties, and then you can sift through, because you might get out of what Councilwoman Watley hands over to you, or whatever the ask is to the public, you might get a handful of people, and you just have to make that decision on how many you want to pick. Mara, you did have something, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up the point, Chair, that you made, that we don't want it to be a quorum of planning commissioners, because we want to move forward as a subcommittee, and that means that you can meet whenever is best for your schedule.
Right.
And staff's here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to meet during office hours too, to help talk about these items. Is that 9 to 4?
Okay. We got a lot to figure out, huh?
You got something on your mind?
Oh, I just gotta pick my son up. That's
Oh.
it.
So
You gotta, you know,
You look
I still
real
got I got
concerned.
teenagers still,
Real
that's all. I'm just
concerned.
looking at this time, that's all.
all right, is there anything further with item A? All right, hearing none, and no votes need to be taken on this, it was just a discussion. Is everybody satisfied with what has been discussed? Let me put it that way. Okay. All right, Mark,
Yeah, Vice Chair. Should I,
Commissioner Faison.
Commissioner Faison, or Vice Chair Faison?
Kim?
I was just letting you know she was talking to you. that's
I'm
all.
sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Should I then coordinate an email between you and Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Daniels on a time to meet to discuss next items?
I did not assume that you were going to have to do that.
Okay.
I
It
think,
would be gratefully helpful.
I feel like the three of us can coordinate on process for all the feedback that we've heard.
Okay, well.
And copy you on everything, or, I guess communication it would be a good thing to know who to communicate with. We probably should keep you updated on all of our steps?
I mean, I can be as involved as you would like me to be. Like, there are some items that I think would be beneficial, that our subcommittee, the planning commission of Hampshire, took over. And you've identified those items like, welcome packets and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, whenever you want any bounds and ideas or anything, I can.
And I would think just for efficiency, Commissioner Faison, if you guys started with Murrah and then developed a work plan and then broke off from there.
Okay.
We
Do
don't have to
you
wait.
want to be copied on everything, Mr. Chair?
He's like,
Y'all go right ahead. If it's something you feel that needs to be brought to my attention or you need me to weigh in, feel free to do so at that time. But you guys are able to work autonomously.
Okay.
I appreciate it though. All right, so anything else before we move to the next item?
You know, we're working, Elizabeth King's out there to help too, you know.
She's not talking about Elizabeth King from the Blacklist. She's actually talking about Elizabeth King from MEDC.
Alrighty. Moving on to item B. Planning Commission meeting schedule adjustment. Discuss potential Planning Commission meeting schedule adjustment to be one Planning Commission meeting per month. Staff recommends the following. Number 1, first Planning Commission meeting of the month, week 2, scheduled as normal, features action items, but also facilitates work plan items. Number 2, second Planning Commission meeting of the month, week 4, canceled and only called as needed. Mara, I guess you go right ahead.
Yeah, this is just an item for discussion, just wanted your general feedback, but, I saw it as an initiative to preserve planning department resources and planning commissioners' time to have one meeting a month, but schedule another meeting as needed, so that would be, you know, like outlined in this policy or idea right here. So the one meeting a month would preserve planning department resources as previously mentioned, and then also allow for more time for planning commissioners to review agenda items and packets, and then have an overall more meaningful meeting. We've modeled other cities, like, so I've engaged in a conversation with other planners and other planning departments in other cities, like where I worked previously, Hamtramck, the city of Ferndale, when I was in Los Angeles, and their neighborhood council, and then like Westland and Dearborn. They have once a month planning commission meetings, but also reserve the right to hold special meetings. So this is just an idea to preserve planning resource time. Just wanted to bring up to your attention.
I'm fine with it. What's your take on it?
I have a question. I mean, how long, I'm
I
sorry.
think it makes perfect sense. The only thing that I would say, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna step on you, did look at me, Chair.
No, that's all right.
Okay, all right. I know Rebecca, I'm sorry, but so ladies always
I'm
first.
sorry.
At the same time, just getting this thought out of my mind, the only thing that I would just make sure of, because we put it out in the public, and this body has, I think at our annual meeting, we say, okay, these are our meetings.
Right.
For as it relates to the public, how do we put that out to the public? So that would be my only concern.
I guess the only thing would be, because what does it say right here? Canceled and only called as needed. I guess a formal notice would just have to go out as a cancellation for that one each time, just because I think it's printed in the calendar and everything like that too. And of course, we did adopt that at an annual meeting, and now, you know, we're changing it, which we have the right to do, but just to be safe, I would recommend that. Mara?
Yeah, depending on the conversation and your feedback, we could potentially amend in our next meeting the calendar and then repost it as amended.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Okay. Commissioner Daniels.
So just, I wanted to know, is there a reason why it was 2 meetings per month in the past? Like, why was it, do anybody know that? Like,
That's before
What-
our time, I think.
it's just always been like that?
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I think it was just as it relates to just doing business. Because typically, like you had a post, a 14-day or 15-day post, we would actually do business or whatever it is. If it's a public hearing, and then you would come right back and then go to the council meeting. So it's like, if you're doing some action or whatever, then the next meeting, it would be after that. Like, it was just always, like, we knew it was the council meeting, the very next meeting.
That's what I'm getting to, so. like-
Yeah, so it's like if you wanted to get something passed, you had the council meeting. Like right now, tonight, we decided if somebody came before us with an application for special land use, then we could essentially go right to the council meeting, or this ordinance will go right to the council meeting. So now we were saying, okay, we're gonna do it at the first of the month. It could still go right to the council meeting, but at the same time, it's like, if you do something at the end of the month, now, versus the next one, you would just miss that meeting.
So we won't be holding up anything because if we indeed needed to have something.
Correct. Yeah. If we
Okay,
need
because
it,
that's what
yeah.
I'm thinking was like, so what if because we don't want to hold up, somebody gotta wait till next month.
Right. That would be essentially, if we decided to do it, it could potentially happen that way.
Okay,
But we reserve that right to call the meeting.
okay.
It'll just be a special meeting. And it would probably get you more participation overall, I think, Mr. Chair. If you're saying, okay, we know that these meetings have action items on every first meeting of the month for the planning commission, we all should be there.
Yeah.
And you adjust your schedule accordingly. There's always something happening in planning, for sure, that needs action. Just my thought.
Commissioner Daniels, did you have anything additional? Okay, because I know I kind of like looked this way and did that. So,
My fault.
all right. So I guess at the next meeting, like Mara said, you would bring something before us to amend the calendar as a voting item.
Yeah.
This is just for discussion. And there's a consensus we're looking at that is feasible, right? Everybody, okay.
Correct.
Cool. All righty, we're moving down to item C. Drive-throughs for marijuana-related business. Discuss if planning commission would like to add drive-throughs for marijuana-related businesses as a special land use. Mara, go right ahead.
Okay, this just came up in a conversation with the applicant, no, Friday actually. And he requested if the city allows drive-throughs for marijuana-related businesses because the state legislation now changed the policy and they allow drive-throughs. So we want to be proactive and get your input. No.
I honestly, I had never thought about it. I mean, until the pandemic, I know people were creative in how they did it, but there was no real establishments that have that type of ground and mechanism in place. So I just had never seen it.
Mr. Chair, if I could just say that, I agree with Councilwoman Wiley, this as it relates to the intensified use. Because of our limited resources, as it relates to policing, traffic control, just for instance, with the Flower Bowl, when they were open, they had traffic all out on Michigan Avenue, right? So we then had to turn to go in and say, hey, listen, you can't have traffic on Michigan Avenue. You got to put them in. They got the little side lot, and now they have them going in the little, thing or whatever.
And that's what I was alluding to.
Allow drive-throughs, depending on where they're at. The intensity of it is just. It happened. I saw it happen in Detroit on Gratiot and Gunston when they opened up the drive-through there with the old bank there, and they were allowing people. And it was just the police are actually out there managing traffic.
Yep.
Whoa.
So I don't think you open yourself up to that as of yet, unless you give it to, say, a local or something with a micro business or something, to make it give them another advantage, But at the same time, I would stay away from that just because we don't have the resources to manage that.
Have you ever seen a Dairy Queen in the summertime?
On Florida.
Oh, I seen our Dairy Queen sometimes.
That boy slapped.
Oh, you're Florida.
Our Dairy Queen,
Our Dairy Queen
they be
sometimes.
posting that John Davis.
Oh, this Dairy Queen be off the
Right, I'm saying, so
Our Dairy Queen right here in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That'll be the first hot day.
Yeah, so with that intensified use, you do, and I get it. I'm all for doing good business and bringing more business in. Of course, it's gonna bring, but now you just got more people that just driving through Inkster. So they're gonna drive. My idea with the marijuana and actually introducing marijuana to the city of Inkster was to have people grounded, and then they can walk and then establish where they get, okay, now they come out of this door and they see something else that they can use.
Yes.
Versus now you're talking about they can drive through, they don't even
Keep
gotta
going.
get out and keep it moving.
Correct.
On,
Yeah.
Inkster or Michigan, wherever, just me, that's just my thought.
Through the chair, yeah, I'm a definite no. However, I'm gonna say this, I do think though that we should still have language in it that prohibits it. Just like Ms. Wiley pointed out that line that you found, Tanya, prohibits it. Because that way, at least we're not leaving it open, because that's something that we do a lot, is we leave it open for interpretation. So I think we come up with our stand on it, and then we say,
Yeah.
prohibit it. So we know that you can do it, we know the states, authorized it, but again, the city of Inkster has decided we don't want a part of that.
We don't want drive-through.
So we need to make sure we specify it in our documentation, if that's what we're saying.
Yeah, I think once everybody just pretty much, if they have to weigh in based off of what is kind of being said, kind of already got an idea, we just make a motion to recommend the city council not to allow drive-through or marijuana drive-through establishments in the city of Inkster. And then, of course, council would take it up, and whatever other process or protocol we have to follow to make sure it's official, we do it that way.
I would say we would add language to the zoning ordinance
Correct.
saying what we want, so prohibiting drive-throughs for marijuana businesses. Yeah, and then we go through, like you said, chair, council, and public hearing process.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the wonderful thing that I actually love about McKenna is that they're in other communities and other like communities like ours, from UP all the way down, to us. So they're able to grab that information and say, what are other communities doing? What other communities, the barriers and things that they're dealing with? like this is one of the first of its kind because it just got voted in, as it relates to new legislation. So for us to, for us to make sure that we do that, we need to do that right away. But the good thing is that it is a special land use. So a person right now that has an establishment couldn't just pop a drive-through window in the side of their building and say, oh, we found the gray area. No,
Exactly.
because it's a special land use. If you alter your space, we would have to approve that. So I think that what Mara has said, and I was saying that because they came in and they looked at our ordinances and they were like, oh, this is weak right here, or this is a gap here, or no, this doesn't make sense. Why is this, so for them and their expertise, and then of course, being in other communities, they're able to say, you need to tighten up on this, or this is what I suggest you should use. So as she was saying earlier, that she's gonna be bringing that stuff back to us as it relates to the marijuana ordinance and some things that's happening in the marijuana ordinance that we need to change. I think that needs to come before us as well.
Anybody else? Already hearing none. Yes, no vote, just moving right along, right?
So I don't know. There's different philosophies on having votes at every meeting and making every agenda item actionable, And then there's just discussion topics, so it's whatever your culture is.
So, because I know you said zoning ordinance, and then it will go to city council.
Yeah, so we can, I'm just gonna write that planning commission's authorizing staff to draft language to prohibit drive-throughs for marijuana related businesses.
Yep.
There you go. Cool. All right, we're down to miscellaneous. Does anybody have anything miscellaneous for this body?
We're looking for volunteers for the Easter egg celebration at the recreation complex this weekend, sponsored by Unity in the Community, the Easter Task Force, Detroit Rescue Mission, Wayne County Sheriff Raphael Washington, the mayor's office, and of course the community itself, the rec complex. So we're looking for volunteers because we're expecting to hopefully have over 500 people at the recreation complex. At the same time, just unbeknownst to me, AIA right on Rosewood, right in the back area of their facility next to the recreation complex, they're having a helicopter drop at the same time with 4 churches within the community that they've identified that's going to be in that area as well. So we're just looking for volunteers. So if you guys want to come out, it started at 11 to 2 So probably 10 a.m., just come on out and just be hands on deck, eyes, ears, hands, all that good stuff. And bring your kids and tell other people about it.
You know what day is that?
It's this Saturday, the 16th.
And to add to that, because she was at the city council meeting, she said that she was asking for donations specifically for hot dogs and candy, that they were short on that.
No, I think we covered on all that stuff.
Okay.
Raphael is bringing 1,500 toys, I believe he's bringing through the Detroit Rescue Mission, and food and stuff. We had some other donations that have come in since then.
Okay.
We should be good on that.
Alrighty, anybody else for miscellaneous? Here none, we're down to public comment. This is an opportunity for the general public to speak about anything that was not on the agenda item or anything that we did discuss.
I'm the only one. Keep it moving, I got it. I just wanted to say that, once again, we need to figure out what kind of city or what kind of image we want to project to the rest of the world. And there is not, or the rest of the state and community, there is, you can't do one thing and expect a different result. Now, I have not been a proponent of marijuana, but I understand its financial advantages. But money isn't everything. I mean, you are not going to get qualified or quality businesses to come into the city of Inkster if you're inundated with certain things. Now, we already got 3 or 4 strip clubs, okay? We're getting as much marijuana as the buffer will allow. And I'm just thinking that we were designated a senior-friendly community 2 years ago. And if you talk to a number of seniors, they are not in favor of this. No one has been able to adequately provide for the filtration system that's supposed to keep your kids from getting high on the way to school, okay? So these are all things that we have to think about. And once again, talking about the 5-year plan, I have been active in Inkster for years. I have never seen anything come out of that 5-year plan. We have got to start saying, this first 5 years, we want to have this done at the end of it. Then we proceed from there. We don't just keep making a 5-year plan just for the fun of it. So.
That's why we need you on that RRC. That's what that does.
Yeah, I'm understanding, but I've had this conversation with other administrations, okay? And we're still at the same place we were before.
Yeah.
I am into progress. You have to have progress. I think we've been stagnant for quite some time. And there's one thing that I want to ask people when they bring us these petitions to open a marijuana location, or they start out with a armored car and they want to make it a hybrid marijuana place. How many of them you have in your city? How many of those do you have next door to your home? And I'm tired of people thinking they can come here and do what they want to do instead of what's best for us. Now, here's the other half of that conversation, and then I'm going to sit down. We can let them do it, but let's just charge them $1 million. Say, yeah, you can have a drive-through there, it'll cost you $1 million. Now, if they're willing to pay the price for that stuff, so be it. But that's one way, without looking at all this lawsuit and they won't like us and stuff like that, that you can keep people out by making it high enough till it either benefits you or gets rid of them. And that's all.
All right, thank you. You don't have anybody else from the general public? Motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Chair.
It's been properly moved by Mayor Wimberly and supported by Commissioner Daniels. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? This meeting is now adjourned. The time is 8:55 p.m.